Okay, so we're going to do some more passive release techniques. This time we're going to do pec major. Pec minor. We did pec major before. Pec minor, yeah, I mean, look, obviously the pec major overlies it. Sometimes it's difficult to get to. Sometimes it's hard to engage. So I'm going to show you a little technique that I love. But there has to be a little bit of care taken with this as well. One thing for sure is make sure that your fingernails are trimmed nice and neatly and short, because if they don't, you're basically going to pick up underneath here and it's going to be really uncomfortable. So you have to make sure those fingernails are really short. It's similar to the pec major, all right, but this time what we're doing is that we're actually coming underneath, and we're not going to be working a huge amount of area. Obviously pec minor is quite small, so we're going to come in from the side and we're actually going to engage the pec major first, pec minor, and then obviously we're going to work through the range. So sometimes people might be really tight. I've done a little bit of work on Dan, all right, so he's quite tight, so you might actually not quite get to the pec minor, so you might just have to free the tissue up before you get to that area, okay? So that could be just a little bit of a process, but nonetheless, this is how it works. As I said before, it is similar to the pec major release in the fact of where you're positioning and how you're holding. So once again, we're going to put the arm in between here. We'll lift up because we want to soften off the pec major. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come underneath with two braced thumbs, all right? You're going to make sure that you've got a decent amount of cream in here. So once again, you don't want it too dry. And then we're going to come underneath the pec major. So I'm going to sink in and then basically take up all the slack until you've reached that first point of resistance. Now, that may be pec minor, but it may not be. It may still just be the fascia underneath. If that is the case, just sink into that and then slowly bring the arm up and out of abduction while you engage that tissue, okay? So this shouldn't be painful, okay? So if it's painful, there's either two things going on here. You're either pushing too hard and forcing the tissue, or your fingernails, or both. So it's got to be tolerably comfortable. So if they're feeling any discomfort and you're starting to guard, then you need to back it right off, all right? So it's really important that this is comfortable for your client. So once again, pick up all the slack, tissue underneath, which is about there for Dan, and then I just come in and out of abduction, and each time just challenging that end range a little bit. And as I said, once again, really have to be mindful about your client's comfortability. How's that? Yeah. Is that all right? Yeah. Like doable?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what can happen sometimes, if you go up too far, too fast, they'll start to really guard, all right? Now, what you can also do once you've worked through that tissue, pin that off to that point there, and then just do some really light mobilizations into the tissue. So I'm hitting the pec minor now on Dan, which is good because that's sort of freed up. But as I said, just keep in mind comfortability of your client. You'll know because they'll start to guard against you. Their arm won't be nice and loose like this. And just work nice and slowly, purposeful. And before you know it, you'll have freed up all that tissue underneath that you don't necessarily get access to. All right, so that's passive release for a pec minor.